All right. Hello, everybody. It is January 5th, 2018. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. And like I said, some days I'm not in a rush to do a video, and other days there's just so much being revealed that it seems like I can do a video every day. And especially lately, it certainly seems like that. There's more than one thing I'd like to cover today, but I'm going to do my best to be as I don't know if I should use the word methodical for you guys, but I'm going to try to keep it as clear and concise as possible. You know, it's still kind of new to me. It's only been 4 months, and you know, just the revelations are pretty amazing, and I do get excited when I start going through them. But today, I'll try to keep it toned down a little bit and just but do as I do, right? I mean, I can't help it. I do get excited about these things that are being revealed and that I'm sharing with you guys. And I just hope they're reaching you, they're getting through. You guys are, especially some new people, you know that you're waking up to the truth of what the Spirit is revealing to me. I back everything, as always, with Scripture. Every single video is backed with Scripture. All right, and it's Scripture backed with Scripture backed with Scripture. And of course, that's what we're going to do again today. So I hope everybody's doing well. It's 5 o'clock here, and I shouldn't curse myself by saying I don't expect it to be my usual hour video. I had Sally Ann call me out on that one yesterday, one of our subscribers, or the other day on my second last video called me out on that. That's what I get for saying, you know, I don't expect a full one, a full usual time, which is usually about an hour. So with that, let's get into it. Nothing much to bring you up to speed on, so let's just get right into it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you more evidence. I spoke about this in the previous video, that I have a lot of these tabs up here that I'm going to go through in another video. I was planning on doing this on a video of these up here, all these tabs up here. I was planning on doing in a video today. Possibly I was going to do it tomorrow. And as I was reading this morning, I spent a few hours today going reading the scriptures, and just more came out again. And what got me into what I'm going to talk about in a little bit is what I did in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So these tabs up here are going to be the evidence of who Matthew, Mark, and Luke are speaking to in relation to the end times. I'm going to give you the evidence. You know, I've pieced it with some evidence here and some evidence there, and I've spoken about it in past videos, maybe even a couple months ago. But I want to do a video that's going to show differences in, not every single difference. I mean, we'd be here for hours in a video. But I'm going to take 3, 4, 5 maybe pieces that are mentioned in all 3, or that are mentioned in 2 and not in 3, but there's a version in 3 that's slightly different, again, from the other 2. But this is what I'm going to do to just show people, because a lot of people like to say, well, you know, rightly dividing. I get that, okay? I don't get a lot of people saying that to me anymore. But I understand the rightly dividing, and it's not an argument, it's true. But what's been revealed to me is the understanding of how the scriptures apply in end days and who they're speaking to. And that's how we came to realize the tribulation is 14 years, right? We can see that in 2 Corinthians 12:2 through 4. Excuse me, it gives us some details there, or not details, it flat out tells us. But what's really interesting, I might even touch on that verse today again. That's one of my favorite ones, or verses there from 2 Corinthians 12. But there's something I think that's going to be touched on today that actually points to that as well. And we'll see if that leads in. But what had happened was, the reason I wanted to do this, the next video that I was planning on doing today or tomorrow, but now not this video, but my next one, I decided to do what I've done in the past. So in the past, I did a video for you guys on Romans, the last chapter, 16, 1 Corinthians, the last one, 16, and 2 Corinthians, the last chapter, 13. And we saw a whole bunch of exciting information. who was being addressed at the end of Romans, who was being addressed at the end of First Corinthians, and it was revealing, to say the least. Right? This talks about the who's going to be taken in the escape, right? We know the escape happens at the beginning. The escape of the bride, the Church of Philadelphia, is going to be what escapes all of these things. The churches that still have to repent are going to be here during the tribulation of the seals till about the 6.5 year mark on the earth here. After the sixth seal, which I still believe is after about the 6.5 year mark. And you saw, if you didn't see yesterday's video, watch the last video I did, and you're going to see incredible revelation from Esther 1. And we realize that this half hour of silence, which is the seventh seal in Revelation 8, that's a time that I've been saying for a long time is probably equal to about 6 months, is what it's getting at. And Ruth is telling us exactly that in the first chapter of Ruth. All right? But what ended up happening was going into these, so I'll just finish on that. So then you still have then the rapture. They're in heaven. They're being shown around for that seventh seal. That's the end of your 7 years. Then you have your 7 years of the tribulation that's coming for Judah, for the Jews. All right, and that ends your 14 years. And then there's about a 1 year window somewhere within 14 to 15 years, that mark, is when God's wrath is poured out. All right? So that's where you get the understanding from 2 Corinthians. But when I did this last chapter of Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, a lot of stuff was revealed. Even stuff like this, according to Revelation, for them that had obedience. Where is it? There's the final final greetings. And it says who is being spoken to in the final greetings of each of them. And so I decided, without going into all this, I've got a video on this already, and like I said, I'm going to try to be a little bit shorter. So I'm not going to go into what this was all about, except to say I thought I would do the same thing in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and see if there was something that would be revealed. So I'm going to go to the last chapter of Luke, last chapter of Mark, and last chapter of Matthew. Well, now watch this. This was exciting. This is something that's going to be tied into the following video, that I expect it to be the following video, which will break down all the understanding of Matthew, Mark, and Luke to give you absolute certainty who they're talking to. Going back to those people that say rightly dividing, right? The rightly dividing, the way they understood it, is true. But what I'm showing is the application to the end times and to the soon coming, like to this time that we're in, and then going forward into the end days. Who they're speaking to, so that people will know and understand what to read and is going to be needed during their days, okay? Now, watch this. Let's go into the end of Luke and watch this. So this is about the ascension. So listen to what it says here. All right, so Jesus there, lifted him up. And it came to pass, while he, Jesus, blessed them, he parted from them and carried it up into heaven. So Jesus gets carried up into heaven. What? So we got to remember, there's the account of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So we have the word carried up into heaven. Well, now let's go have a look at Mark and see what Mark has to say. Well, same thing here. We are in the there's the Great Commission. This is the time of his ascension, right? And so then after the Lord had spoken unto them, he was received up into heaven and sat on the right hand of God. See how that's totally different? And you say, oh, come on, Al, what's the difference between, especially new people watching, what's the difference between, oh, he was carried up compared to received up? It is a huge difference, guys, and I'll touch base on that in a minute. Now let's go into Matthew. Let's go into Matthew. And don't forget, one of the key things is when you have this program that I use, it's free. It takes up almost no space on your system, and it's called eSword. You just download it, and you can click on this. You can click on just the KJV, and then you don't have word definitions, which you can use, but I never use it. I use the plus, so that you can always have word definitions, original Greek, original Hebrew word definitions. and you can get an understanding, which you're going to see today in this video, the incredible revelations that are going to come because we can follow the root words and get the understanding of what these original words were, all right, and what they meant. So now let's go to the end of Matthew, right? We're in Matthew 28. Look at this, right at the end, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the world. This is how Jesus ends speaking to them in Matthew. I'm with you even until the end of the world. So just these 3 verses that I covered with you in Matthew, Mark, and Luke give you the answer, give you the proof, but it's only one piece to show you, but it's so clear that, I mean, I know it's really clear to me that I could say, look, you don't even really need to look at anything else, but obviously I'm going to show you more in another video, the next one that I'm going to do. But this one is to show you yet again, here we are, Matthew, like I said, is addressing Judah, the Jews. Mark is talking to the churches, right, to Israel, right, southern tribe, northern tribe, the 10 tribes that left, and Luke talks to the bride. So he's addressing everything as if the bride. And the understanding of all this first came when I was looking up the Olivet Discourse. Everybody, generally everybody, goes to the Olivet Discourse of Matthew, and they regurgitate everything that comes from what Matthew says. And then they try to piece together the end days and the end times understanding from what the words of Matthew says in his discourse. And what they do is from there, then they go into Daniel. So when you go from Matthew to Daniel and you're only using Matthew's discourse and you're using Daniel to the end times, then you think it's only 7 years. You'd be right. You see what I'm saying? You would be right. But what you don't understand is Mark's group. Mark talks about in his Olivet Discourse is completely, well, I shouldn't say completely, but there's many, many different things, and there's difference in words and even directly who he's talking to. And you realize that this is Judah and this is to the church. So Israel and Judah are the Jews, all right? And now when you go in, if you were to go take Mark, which is probably why nobody does it. Nobody goes and says, okay, well, let's go into Mark when we read, after we read Daniel, and let's tie them together. No, for some reason, everybody goes to Matthew, generally everybody. I don't like that everybody, right? It's never always everybody. Look at my teachings, right? There's exceptions out there. So generally, though, the overwhelming majority go to Matthew and then they relate Matthew into Daniel and then go to Revelation with that. And that's why they can't see 14 years. If you go to Mark, you'd start to realize. Go to Luke and you'd realize even more, because in his discourse, he lets you know, and I talk about this just about in every video, he lets you know that he's not talking to his group. He's letting us know one of these 2 things that we'll have to go through, some of Mark's stuff or some of Matthew's stuff or a little bit of both, if we're not prepared, if we're not found worthy, accounted worthy to escape all these things, if we weren't watching and praying and searching them out in the scriptures, spending some time daily with them, we'll be left in one of these groups. Well, if you're not Jew, you're not going to be there, but, you know, to be left in the churches, in Mark's group. And what Luke does is his discourse is a combination of explaining through both of these. All right? But he lets you know twice, he jumps in with his own words and says, he said unto them. That means Jesus said unto them. All right? And now we have the evidence here. So knowing that this is talking to Matthew, or I mean, this is in Matthew, and Jesus ends with saying, and I am with you always, even until the end of the world. When is the end of the world, guys? After 7,000 years. Jesus will return at the end of the tribulation, when it's all over, when he sets his foot down on the Mount of Olives. See, I was watching this teacher just briefly yesterday from South Australia, southern part of Australia. And he wants to go in and he says, you know, here's the timing of Revelation. And I'm like, here we go again. But I want to watch. I want to see what these people are what kind of understanding they have. And so what this pastor was teaching is how pre-tribulation and mid-tribulation are wrong, because Jesus said when he returns to the earth, You see the confusion of that? So, of course, he goes to and says, well, in Matthew, or when Jesus is going to set his foot down on the earth, on the Mount of Olives. Well, that's correct. But that's at the end of the tribulation, right? That's when he's going to literally come here and set his feet down on earth. There's still the time when he's going to come in the clouds first, and he's going to have been seen, and apparently it's going to take a little while. It's not going to be an immediate thing. He's going to be there. They're going to see something going on. I've explained that in the last video, or the second last video. And then in Luke's group, we're being brought, we're being carried, we're being brought to the Son. We're the bride, which is what I'm going to now touch on with those other two pieces. All right, so this guy believes in post-tribulation rapture when it's all done. So you see these views of pre, mid, and post. Here's the thing. The teaching that I reveal, that the Lord reveals through me, that the Holy Spirit has led me in, that I reveal to you guys, brings all of them into unity with absolute scripture evidence. The bride that Luke is talking to goes first. Before anything happens, the next thing that's going to happen on the cycle of all this, before anything of tribulation starts, is Luke's group. The bride is going to be carried away. Then it's going to start the tribulation of the seals. The seals are the tribulation for Mark's group, for the church. Boom, there's your rapture. There is only one rapture. The first one is an escape, right? It's called an escape, where we're going to be carried up. This is going to be like a translation, like what happened to Enoch. It's going to be what Paul said in 2 Corinthians, like a rapture. Not a rapture, but he doesn't know how else to explain it except to say it's not the rapture, but it's like a rapture. That's what's going to happen to Luke's group. Mark's group is the rapture. Paul even tells us in 2 Corinthians 12 that is, the second one, he says, was a rapture, because he understands what it meant. And he says this group was the ones that got raptured. All right? And then he says, now I've come to you a third time, later in 2 Corinthians 12. Now I've come a third time. Right? You're going to see this today in what we're going to talk about, just like he says here in 2 Corinthians 12. So in 2 Corinthians, like I said, he's talking to Judah, to the Jews. And he's saying, when it first started over 14 years ago, above 14 years, at the beginning what happened, there was a group that was like being caught up. He knew somebody that was like being raptured, and they went to the third heaven, because we go to stand before the Son of Man. We're the bride. Then I knew a man who was caught up to paradise. This is the rapture portion. But look what he says down here. Behold, the third time I'm ready come to you. See that? You're going to see this again. And this time he says, I'm not here to bring you burden like he did with the tribulation for the church. Right? Takes away the bride. Boom, burdens come. After burdens, what does he do? What does he do? He comes for the children. For the church. For Israel. The lost sheep. Right? And he says, this time, being here the third time, I'm not here to bring you burden, which is what I did after I took the bride out. I'm not here for your kids like I did at the rapture. This time I'm here for you, the parents. Your kids didn't lay up for you. You had to lay up for your children so that they could be taken care of. And now I'm here for you, the parents. The third time. We're going to touch on this third time here today as well in something else I'm going to get into. Okay? So we know that Jesus, when he returns and sets his foot down, is going to set his foot down at the end of the tribulation. Okay? Like I said, this understanding combines that there is an escape. There's an event of people being taken out first, before it all starts. There is a rapture in the middle, and then there's the return of Christ, the third at the end. These teachings that I give you guys are the understanding of pre-tribulation, mid-tribulation, and post-tribulation. Why do you ever pause for a moment and think, why and how did people come to believe that all three of these things exist? Why not a three-quarter of the way, a quarter of the way, 1/3? Why beginning, middle, end? See what I'm saying? It's because there are 3 events. The problem is they try to understand all of it from the side of 7 years, when the tribulation is actually 14 years. Hence, pre-tribulation, escape of the bride. Mid-trib, rapture of the church. What is the rapture? What does the church teach? Rapture before the tribulation, before the 7 years of tribulation. Well, guess what? They're right. 7 years before the tribulation of Judah, the rapture of the church is going to take place. And then Matthew, boom, Jesus sets his foot. And what happens when Jesus comes at the end of tribulation? Look at this. He's at the end of Matthew, at the end, last verse of Matthew. What happens? End of tribulation, end of Matthew. He addresses them and says, and I'm with you always until the end of the world. When does the end of the world come? At the end of the 1,000-year millennium. Thank you very much. See that? You should see some of these things. Like I said, I still have this other video. I keep pushing it in my notes. But 1 Corinthians, 1 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy is all talking to the churches, to the church, to Israel during the time of tribulation, during the seals. 2 Corinthians, 2 Thessalonians, 2 Timothy is addressing Judah during their time of tribulation. And it's how they're to act, how they're to carry on, how they're to care for others, all these types of things. All right? You find out that during the tribulation of the seals, the church people should abstain from fornication and no children. Yet, for Judah during their time, if they're following the law and believe in Jesus Christ, they're to have children. Why do you think that is? Because they're Matthew's group. They're going to be here until the end of the world. They're here to repopulate during the 1,000-year millennium. Or during the 1,000 years. Redundancy, right? During the 1,000 years. Hence, and Jesus says, I'm here with you until the end of the world. See that? Now let's see. What does Mark say? Mark says, this is really cool. Mark says, was received up. Okay? Received up. Now you're going to see to take up is also going to be referred to in Luke's. But that's just the general, because it's a taking. Okay? So that's why you have it referred to as to take up, but it's not the same Greek word. This is just one of the definitions for it. And you're going to see that it comes from one of these. It comes from this one. They also will both come from G303, but you're going to see they're different here in one of the other words that they come from. But check this out. Even though it says to take up because they are being taken, what are they? They're received up, just like it says. That's why it's a different word. Watch what Luke says. This was so awesome. I love this. The Lord revealed this to me 2 nights ago, I think it was. And then what he revealed to me this morning, I'm going to lead into it, okay? And I know I said it won't be an hour, but we might end up there. My bad for saying it at the beginning, I guess, eh? So now here, what do we have? Here we are at the end of Luke. What does he say to Luke? What Jesus is essentially, what happens to Jesus here, he's not received up. He's carried up. And look, it's G399. The received up is G353. So let's see the difference. This is to take up, but it means to receive up. Okay? It has the same G303, which is what? To go up. It means up. All right? So this one's basic. We got that one. To take up, from meaning receive up in that case. What about carried up for Luke's group? Look at Luke's group. To take up is there. To what? Bring or carry up. Offer up. Right? They both have this one, which means up. But look what this one means. Check this out. Let's go to it. G5342. 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 This one's a little bit trickier to get to just because of where it is. G53 40. Whoops. Oh, I went too far. Give me 1 second. G53 42. All right, look at what it means. To bear or to carry up, bring forth, carry. All right, that's where the word comes from. And you're going to see as we go further into it, I'm going to show you some stuff that's really wild that I don't think anybody's revealed before, including, well, I don't think anybody's given you this understanding before, because it's impossible for anybody to reveal this understanding to you if they don't understand that there are three events. That the pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib, these people were all correct except where they put it. Well, except for the post-tribbers, all right? Except for where they put it. Because they didn't understand 14 years. Okay? So here we are, bear, carry. Now remember this. I've talked about this in a previous video. That generally words that are close, it could be like 53, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. Oftentimes words relate to each other, okay? Vanish and escape. Do you remember seeing the word escape before? If you've watched my videos, that's what Luke tells his people, meaning the bride. If it hasn't taken place yet, everybody, you still have a chance to be part of the bride, to escape all of these things, which means to vanish. It's the same running word as, or the same association to the word 5342, which is why we see it in relation to bring, bear, carry away, carry up, which means the same thing from the word 5342 and relates to 5343, which means vanish and escape. Well, what else? Just look at the words. Forget even digging into the root word of it. Think of it like a wedding. What happens? Now, I know we don't do this. Sorry, coffee time. It's cooled down a bit now. What about, and more so, I guess we still do it sometimes, right? Sometimes you'll see it in movies that what happens? The bridegroom picks up his bride, right? He picks her up and he carries her into his mansion. Into his kingdom. Into the house, right? Into the apartment. This is being carried up happens to who? The bride. Do you get that? Isn't that exciting? With everything, if you guys have been watching my videos, with everything I've shown you about who Luke and Mark and Matthew are speaking to, and that Luke is talking to the bride, and I've given so much evidence on it, it's impossible to deny if you've watched the videos. And now we have the word, Jesus was there, and then he departed them, and boom, he was carried up to heaven? Why didn't they all use the same word? Because different people are getting a message. These three are getting different messages to different people. That's why you have the word carried up. Just like a bride, the bride is going to be carried up. So that's why Luke says he sees Jesus as if he was carried up. All right? Look at what Mark says. Let's go to the definition. Let's look at Mark. What happens to Mark? Received up? Who's received? Who's received after a wedding? Does the bridegroom receive the bride? No. What happens after the wedding? Just like yesterday's video in Esther, right? What happens after the wedding? You receive what? You receive the guests and to have the feast in the garden of the king's palace. Not in the palace. Why? Because they can't go in there. That's for the bride, for the groom, for the family in there. You see that? Matthew, Mark, and Luke revealing more truth, more evidence, more proof that's just undeniable. There's so much. And here we go. Again, at the end of Mark, at the end of Matthew, at the end of Luke, giving us the clues. I'll be with you till the end of the world, because that's when he sets his foot down. This group, the church that gets raptured, Mark's group, they get received up. Who gets received? Somebody who's been welcomed. They get received into the party. You see that? You're going to get received into heaven. You're going to spend 6 months touring heaven, is what Esther tells us. The Lord is going to be showing everybody around, or maybe we're going to be there, or the bride, whoever is found accounted worthy, is going to be there showing them around as well. Because we'll have been there, the bride will have been there for 7 years before. See that? Or 6.5 years at least before. And these people, which is the church, right? Mark's group, the church, Israel, the lost sheep, they get received. They're not carried. Isn't that awesome? Luke's group, the bride gets carried. So she's carried up and the wedding brought to stand before the Son of Man. She's carried up to the Son of Man, where we will stand before the Son of Man, just like Luke says. Isn't that wild? And then I just showed you, right, with 53. Oh, now I got to go to it again. 53:42. Okay, let's remember. It means like a lot of this says already, right? Because that's where it comes from. So 53:42. 53:42. All right, watch this. It's going to lead into the next piece of what I was building on. Oops. 53:42. All right? To bear, carry up, bring forth, which is also from the word 53, or part of the word, their brother and sister, if you will. 53:43. Vanish and escape. All right? Watch this. So we've gone through this, and we talked about Luke. So we showed the word escape and Luke. Now watch this. Let's go into Luke 21, the Olivet Discourse. Watch this, watch this, watch this. All right? So this is the one, this is again another one of my favorites, right? Watch ye therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape what? All of these things that shall come to pass, and to be like a bride, stand before the Son of Man, her bridegroom. All right? But look at the word escape. The word escape, flee out and escape. All right? We can see the word that it comes from, flee from, out. 53:43. Watch this. 53:43, right? We were already there. 53:43, right? There it is. Just like I showed, means to vanish. All right? And we know that it's related to the word bear or carry, bring forth, carry forth, just like we saw. So escape comes from the word vanish, right? 53:43, which means to vanish, flee, or escape, just like it told us, right? Flee out, escape, vanish, which is associated in part of the word for carry away, which is exactly what we're told later in Luke 24, that the bride, his group, is going to be the one that gets carried up, which means the same thing from the word, there you go, bear, carry. Now watch this. Watch this. This is brand new that was revealed to me. Again, it's one of those things you're not looking for it, and then suddenly you're like, what? Watch this. Let's go into John 21. Sorry, a little coffee drink. So, like I had said, I had done it in Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. Go to the last chapter of each, and boom, some major revelations were there to understand who's being spoken to. And then, of course, I did it 2-3 nights ago in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Go to the last chapter, and boom, that's what I just revealed to you. So today, for some reason, nothing planned whatsoever, I just said, oh, you know what? Let's just try going into John 21, and let's see what can come out of John 21. All right? So I was reading through it, and I thought some things were really strange. This is something I want to do a study on. I don't know if I'll get to it or remember to get to it, because there's so many things that I just get led to, and but this is something that I really want to come to understand. The 153. Why were there 153 great fish in there? I don't know right now, but there's some pretty wild things. What was another one that was really weird? Right here. Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, and he girt, meaning he went and got his fishing coat that he didn't have on and tied it up about him, and then he jumped into the sea to go meet the Lord. But he was fishing on the boat naked. What? So I don't know what that means. I haven't looked into it. I just told my wife that one this morning as I was looking through it and reading through, and I'm like, what on earth? And then he girded himself, and you find out a little bit more later, but I still don't know what that meaning was, except that here he was fishing. They couldn't catch any fish, and Jesus tells him, hey, throw your nets on the other side. obviously, while this is happening and Jesus is on the sea and they don't really know quite for sure that it's him, well, except for Timothy does, yells, hey, throw your nets on the other sea. You haven't been catching anything? Hey, throw your nets, on the other side. So they do it, and apparently Peter's naked while doing it. Maybe different customs we didn't know about back then. But anyways, I don't know what the purpose was. I'm sure there's something, but I just don't know it. But now look at this. I start going further and further down into John 21, and watch what happens. Remember I was telling you a little bit earlier? So this is now the third time that Jesus showed himself to his disciples after he was risen from the dead. Well, what did 2 Corinthians 12 say? You got to remember, when Paul's talking about all this, Paul was given information, like almost the information like Jesus Christ was. Which is why there was people saying, oh, I'm of Paul, I'm of Jesus, I'm of Apollos, right? It's all the bickering within the churches is what it means to the end days. But people thought that because it was Paul going around giving them all this information after Jesus was gone. Because he had been downloaded these understandings, the truth. Well, just like I said here, you have the first time, right? The first time, above 14 years ago. Here's the first group, like being raptured, but not. The second group was raptured. And then what? Now I'm here a third time. And this time, as if talking to the Jews, to talking to Judah, right? I showed this earlier. First time for the bride, second time for the children, third time he's here for the parents. All right? So now we keep that in mind, that he's there talking, or that John is talking, see, Jesus there a third time. So we know who he's addressing. But what does he do? He talks just like he did, just like Paul did with the information he had in 2 Corinthians 12. The first time he says, the second time he says who it was. The third time he says now it's for them. You see that? Well, now watch this. Have you guys ever been revealed this before? I've never heard it. Now listen, Jesus said to Simon Peter, all right? There's something here too that maybe, here he says to Simon Peter. Simon, son of Jonah, right? He always says the same thing. Simon, son of Jonas, do you love me? Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? But the first one he says, do you love me more than these? Meaning all of your buddies, everybody that's here, the disciples, the apostles, everybody that's here. Do you love me more than them? And of course he says, yes, of course. You know I do, Lord. And then what does Jesus say to him? Feed my lambs. Okay, pay attention. This is the first time. All right? Feed my lambs. What about the second time? Jesus says again, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Why do you say these things to me? You know I love you. Then feed my sheep. Do you understand? If you didn't have this eSword program, if I didn't have it, or people that were just straight reading from the Bible without some sort of Strong's Concordance or something like that, watch what happens. You're going to read it, feed my lambs, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. And you'd say, oh, well, lamb kind of what? Is a baby sheep? Essentially, it's a sheep. And people generally will think nothing of it. You need the plus. You need this Bible gateway without having to bounce back and forth between books. It is so helpful. It's a godsend, this program, really. Well, now watch this. You're going to find out lambs and sheep don't equal the exact same thing. Watch this. First group, right? The first time. Just like Paul says in 2 Corinthians 12. The first time, Jesus here is saying, feed my lambs. Second and third time, he says what? Feed my sheep. Why? Let's touch on sheep real quickly first. Why does he use lambs and then says sheep for the second one and sheep for the second one and the third one? Because what did Jesus say? What did Jesus say? Matthew 15, I think 25. Matthew 15, 25, 24. This is after the woman said, oh, her daughter has the devil in her, and she's She comes to Jesus, wants to have the devil taken out from her daughter, but he answered her not a word, right? People think, oh my goodness, that's so rude. Why would Jesus just walk away from her? And his disciples came and besought him, saying, send her away, for she cries after us. But he answered, so Jesus answered and said, I am not sent here, meaning I'm not sent, meaning sent to the earth, but unto what? The lost sheep of the house of Israel. So what does that mean? The lost sheep. We know that means the house of Israel, right? The 10 tribes to the north. That is the second sheep that John was talking about, or that Jesus was saying in John 21. That's the second sheep, the lost ones. And then the third one, why is it sheep again? Well, because there's still Judah. They're still family. They still know of Jesus. They're still Jesus' brethren, right? So what does he say? To the lost sheep. He's come for the rapture group, right? The lost sheep. So if there's lost ones, that means there's some that aren't lost, correct? Hence, Judah, the third one, which is now I'm come the third time, just like 2 Corinthians, Paul telling us, first time is what? The first time for the bride, they're the lambs. The second time, the lost sheep. The third time, they're his brethren. He's not here for them anymore. He's not here because of the lost ones. He's got the lost ones. He's now here for his brethren, the sheep. The not lost sheep. See that? That's John 21. That's the understanding of the 3 sheep. Well, now let's touch on the lamb. Watch where the lamb leads, which is why I keep saying this program, eSword here, is so important. All right? So we get sheep, but what about getting lamb? All right? Let's understand lamb. We have the lost sheep, right? That's the second feed my sheep. The third one is the sheep. That's the sheep for Judah. But we have the distinction of the first one, which is lamb. All right? Who are the lambs? And people say, oh, well, Jesus. Well, no, it's not Jesus. He's the one talking. All right? And he's telling Peter to feed my lambs, which is the first group. All right? Diminutive from 704. And then 704, you can see in there, I can't cross over, it'll disappear. See? But if you read in this box, you see same as lamb, male, lamb. It's just same thing, lamb. So we got to dig a little bit more. So G730. Let's go to G730. There it is. A male as strong for lifting, male. Again, still coming from lamb. Well, now let's go to G142 and let's see where that comes from. G142, because we need to dig down. All it's essentially saying is male, and it's saying lamb. Well, obviously we know some of the bride. There's going to be men and women, so it's not about just being male. So let's see where a digging deeper leads us. Here it is. Primary verb to lift, right? We just saw that in 730. The closest one to the other, and it's to lift. Well, look at this. By implication, to take up or to take away, figuratively to raise. Put away, like the Lord God says. Put away in my treasure house. Remove, take up or take away. The word lamb comes from the word to lift and to raise and take away. You see that? The word lamb means bride. He's essentially saying it means bride. Who gets what? Raised. Who gets carried up. Right? Who gets carried up. Here's the digging, going in a couple word deep to get the understanding of the word sheep, which comes from the male to lift, which comes to lift, to take up, to raise up, which also gives the understanding of bride who is going to be what? Carried up. See that? Take up, bring up, carry up. It's exactly what we're seeing here. The lambs, not the lamb, sorry, the lambs that John is that in John 21 we're seeing when Jesus tells Peter, then feed my lambs, is the first group, his bride, who is going to be raised up, lifted up, to take up, taken up, removed, put away in the Lord's kingdom, in the Lord's palace, to avoid, to escape all of these things. It's telling you the bride. The lambs are the bride. Isn't that awesome? More and more and more and more and more proof. It just keeps flowing. And guys, please remember, this isn't me. This is the Holy Spirit working through me, giving us this information. Look at that, third time, just like 2 Corinthians 12. Third time. Different groups. I never understood this. Somebody tried touching on this last time, and I missed something, but because they weren't touching on the lambs and the sheep, they were trying to explain Simon, son of Jonah. Well, I mean, all three of them say Simon, son of Jonah, Simon, son of Jonah, Simon, son of Jonah. There's nothing changed. All right? The key is, yes, there's some things in here that are within these words, but it's really him just accentuating, why do you keep asking me? You know it. It's almost like, am I doing something wrong? What's going on? So there are little hints in these other ones. But the key to understand is, why feed my lambs and feed my sheep and feed my sheep? Because of who he's addressing for him to take care of. Take care of my bride. Feed her. Give her the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding. Feed her my word. And he's to do the same thing to all three. But the Lord put them in order for him. And the lambs, which is why, by the way, why do you think it has an S? Why is there an S and not just lamb? Pretty obvious, isn't it? Because Jesus is the lamb, right? But he's the capital L lamb. So it just so happens there's an S on the end of this one so we don't get confused. Why couldn't they have used something else? Look at this. They didn't do plural here. Well, I guess sheep is still plural, but it could be in single, right? So the sheep, lambs, why? Because it was a perfect fit. They couldn't use the word. It wasn't meant to be the word lamb. It was meant to be the word lambs to give us the understanding of who was being spoken to. So Peter is first told to feed his bride. And without going much longer, it goes back to something else I keep showing you guys. Oh, wait, where was that one? Not going to this one at 24, carried away. Shoot, I forgot where I was going with it. But, that's the insight we get there. Now, let's check out this one real quick. I think I had one more. Oh, yeah, let's go check out Acts 8. Watch this. It gives us greater understanding into a little bit more now, too. Let's go into Acts 8. Where is it this far? Oh, watch this. So you want to get some understanding. Now watch this. We'll finish it up with this. In Acts 8:32, so we know that this is Philip and the eunuch, right? The eunuch is trying to understand Eliash's words. And, who is it? Elijah's words. And the eunuch's like, oh my goodness, can you help me understand this stuff? You can go read it for yourself in Acts 8. And Philip says, yeah, I can give you the understanding. And he's like, oh my, because the eunuch's freaking out. He's like, oh my goodness, who's this speaking to? Who's going to have this happen to them? And listen to what is said here. The place of the scripture which was read was this. He was led as a sheep to the slaughter. See that? Who goes to the slaughter? The lambs or the sheep? The sheep go to the slaughter. And watch how this ties in. And like a lamb, it doesn't mean the lamb is getting slaughtered. No, the sheep is getting slaughtered. And like a lamb, dumb, not meaning dumb as being an idiot, meaning dumb as in voiceless, being quiet, mute, not saying anything, as a lamb is mute and not saying anything, is voiceless before the shearer, so opened the sheep, so opened he, the sheep, not his mouth. And then what happens? Right? Oops. And then what happens? In his humiliation, again, not meaning the humiliation necessarily, it can mean that, but it means in his lowest state, his feeling of just humbleness. There you go. You see that there? His lowness of humbleness, of being humble because he realizes he's being brought before the slaughter. The sheep is being brought to slaughter. In his humility, in even though it's humiliation, it's a combination of that, but he brings himself low in humbleness, and he decides not to speak. He opens his mouth not. And in his humiliation, realizing this, check this out. His judgment is taken away. Do you know what that's talking about? It was just revealed to me a few hours ago. In his humiliation, meaning in his humbleness, in his low spirit, in his humbleness of it, and in humiliation, his judgment was taken away. What do we see in Matthew, Mark, and Luke in the Olivet Discourse? Some, watch this, some of you, watch, where is it? Watch this, watch this, watch this. Shall be taken up to get killed. Come on, where are you? Let's see. It's not in all discourses because it's speaking to specific groups, right? We've got to remember there's two groups of sheep, right? One is the lost, and then there's still the other one. And I could just be missing some of it here too. I don't remember if I had it highlighted or not. But you can go, oh, there we go. Here it is. So in Luke 21, remember, Luke isn't going through any of this stuff, his group. He's speaking as if he's speaking from Matthew and Mark's perspective, what his people are going to go through. All right? And some of you, see, I already had this highlighted from a previous teaching on something else. Some of you shall they cause to be put to death. Remember? And then it says, but don't think too hard. I don't even want you to think on what you're going to say when you're brought up before synagogues and beaten and everything else, right? So when they shall deliver you up and deliver you to be, take no thought beforehand that or what you shall speak. Don't premeditate on it whatsoever. But just do whatever is going, just say whatever is going to be given to you to speak in that hour. But it's not going to be from you. It's going to be from the Holy Ghost. So when those of you during the time of tribulation, during the time of seals, when you're brought up before the rulers for being a Christian and you're going to be killed for being Christian and you don't deny Jesus Christ, what happens? You humbly go up in your lowness. You don't say anything except what the Lord gives you. You don't just speak your own words. That's the revelation of Acts 8, right? Where is that again? Acts 8. That's what's happening here. See? He was led as a sheep. Who's led to the sheep? Who's led as a sheep to the slaughter? Mark and Matthew's group, aren't they? We already know that. You can be killed for being a Christian. A sheep, right? Led to the slaughter. But you need to be silent like a lamb at a shear as he's getting sheared. He's quiet. And then what it says is, and the sheep opened not his mouth. And in his humiliation, right, his judgment was taken away. Do you see how that relates to the discourses in through Luke and Mark and so forth? Do you see what I'm getting at? You might be saved from being killed. You might be there before the judge, and as a believer, instead of just going up there and saying, yes, I believe in Jesus Christ, and saying your thing, you shut your mouth. There's going to be people, which is what I'm teaching this for. The understanding that the Spirit has given me is for end time understanding of these scriptures. Who is being spoken to and for when? And that's what I'm telling you here. This was just revealed to me a few hours ago. And I read this stuff a couple months ago. And it never struck me until I got this understanding of the sheep and the lamb difference today. That's what this is all about. So if you be quiet, you sheep that are going to be here during the time of tribulation, you Marks and you Matthews, let the Spirit speak for you. You will be given these words through the Holy Spirit, through the Holy Ghost himself, to speak through you an hour before you're to go before the judge and the jury and so forth, or the judge. And if you go in there with your own words, you're going to the slaughter. But it might just be based on this understanding that if you keep your mouth shut and you don't think on your own words and you allow the Holy Spirit to come and speak through you, in your humbleness, in your spiritual humbleness, and not trying to squirm out or say what you think you can as a human to get out of that situation, because it's a holy battle, it's a spiritual battle that's taking place here. If you will humble yourself, humiliate yourself, and allow the Holy Spirit to speak through you, your judgment might be taken away. See that? All right, guys, with this exciting news, with these incredible revelations, understanding more of John and a little bit here in Acts for this piece of scripture that I don't believe we ever understood before fully, especially in relation to the end times. More Matthew, Mark, and Luke in the last chapter, almost the last verse of all three of them, giving you more evidence. I don't know how much more I can give to give you proof of who Matthew, Mark, and Luke are speaking to. And there is three events: escape, the bride being carried up; rapture, being received up to heaven, then being shown around heaven for 6 months, and then having your 7 years of feast prepared by the king himself in the garden, in Eden, in the courtyard. All right? Followed by Matthew, when you're going to return. When Mark's group, those who are feasting in the palace, in the courtyard garden in Eden, you're going to return with Jesus Christ when he sets his foot down at the end of Matthew, at the end of tribulation, when he sets his foot down and everything's defeated and the end comes, you guys return with him. And we know that also from 1 Thessalonians, thus shall we ever be with the Lord. Right? The bride is going to spend the next 1,000 years during the millennium in the kingdom of heaven, not in the kingdom on earth. All right, guys. Man, this was an awesome, exciting one for me. I believe I held it together and was able to show you guys this a lot more clearly. And there I am, right at my hour mark again. I think this one was well worth it, though. I didn't go over and over and over again. I was able to clearly show you guys this stuff. As always, share it. If you don't know how to explain this stuff to your pastors or to others, subscribe and get others to subscribe. Lead them to it. Send them the links. Email the links to your pastors, to your teachers, to your Bible studies. Let them see this stuff, guys. This is the understanding for the end. All right? People still have time to make it in to be part of the bride. The bride is still here. And if she's still here, that means the end, he's going to wait till the last possible moment, the last possible second before the end comes, so that nobody would miss it, because of course nobody's going to miss it. And what that means is there's still room. The whole bride isn't ready yet, isn't ready to go. There's still openings to be part of the bride. Get yourself out of maybe being in the Laodicean, or maybe you're part of Smyrna or one of these other 7 churches. You have the chance to be found accounted worthy and be part of the bride. And to do that, you spend time in the Word daily, even if you just have a few minutes. Spend time in the Word daily, researching, studying His Word. Right? Pray, speak to Him daily as you would somebody that you're trying to get to know that you're going to marry. He wants you to spend time with Him. That's what His Word is. The Word is Him. It is Jesus Christ. You need to get to know Him. He's going to be your bridegroom. You need to get to know Him, and this is how you get to know Him, is in His Word and speaking to Him and to the Father in prayer. All right? So with that, guys, God bless you. I love you. I'm looking forward to the next video as well. But boy, this one was exciting. I hope you guys liked it as much as I did. All right. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.